And we are live. Welcome, everybody. We've got Ron and Evan with us here. I think we're working through a little technical difficulty, and then Evan's going to provide us an update.
You think I'm going to do that?
I mean, I hope you do that.
All right, let me turn on my video. Oy, oy, oy. How you doing today?
Me? I'm doing really good. Very exciting day, full of lots of stuff that moves the needle forward, helps people out. So those are always my best days.
There you go. Are you going to share your video too?
I can turn my camera on. I can.
Yeah, it just had me, and I felt really odd just being me on YouTube. But when you guys are the talent, I'm just, you know.
You're the talented one. I've seen you.
Right? He's definitely got the cleanest shave.
True.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Yeah, so tonight we're postponing the class till Monday. So Monday was originally meant to be a break night. We had some last minute things that happened around here, which isn't uncommon for information security folks. So that pushed us to Monday. Now, Monday night's class, I will be teaching, so I'll put that together, and so you guys get to see this. I don't know if that's a good thing. You get to see this face, but I don't know. So that's that. And I figured, I don't know, do one of you have the chat open?
I do have the Slack open and the Zoom chat as well. Yes.
Okay. Because I think we can use this time, being that people, joined us. We had to send out the update kind of last minute. We can take this time to kind of catch up on where we're at so far with the class. It sounds like things have been going really, really well. What do you guys think?
Definitely. I think we've moved through quite a bit of content, and there's been some good activity with folks interacting, asking questions. So I think we've done pretty well. I don't know, everybody that's tuned in, what do you think? How's it going for you?
Anybody feeling overwhelmed?
I mean, can you work in this job and not?
Yeah, that's right. People don't realize, I may look this age. I'm actually only 16. Yeah, I started doing security right out of the womb, and this is what I look like.
And we started with hair, and look what happened to us, Evan.
Yeah, for you, yeah, that's how it affected you. It actually, I think, took all your hair, put it on me.
There you go. So the time now is for folks, if you have questions, and if you would like, I can show you some demos that will help bring home what Ryan covered last week, what Christoph covered on Monday, if you would like to see them.
Now, Christoph actually covered on Monday. He covered what, networking
and encryption.
See, those are my favorite. I wish I could have done that one instead of this next one. Oh, should I? Application presentation, session transport, network, data link, physical.
Yes.
You'll have to memorize that.
The ISO OSI?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I never, how did you guys learn that? Did you guys actually learn it from the letter thing, the mnemonics? Is that what they call it?
Please do not throw sausage pizza away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
kind
so
of,
that's
sort of.
I learned it in old school where I actually just memorized the application presentation session. I don't know the mnemonic. Isn't that weird?
Well, as long as you know it. And I've had a debate. Do you learn it from layer 7 to 1 or 1 to 7? And someone's saying you just do 7 to 1. I'm like, does it really make a difference? Anyway,
whatever works for you, top down for sure. Did we talk about, some of the layer 2 stuff, media access control?
Little bit. The way they've structured this content, like we didn't talk about TCSec, right? Because that's later in the book under networking. So even though traditionally we would have talked about that as part of cryptography and encryption, the way that the new book is structured, that's going to come in, I hope, because it'd be sad if they didn't talk about it, should come in later on in the actual networking domain.
The infamous orange book.
yes.
Part of the Rainbow series. We actually have somebody, and I don't know if she's here tonight, but usually she's moderating the chat, who was part of writing that,
Wow.
the Rainbow series. Yeah, probably the Red Book, TNI, and maybe the Orange Book too. Pretty cool. You know, that little trivia, Windows NT, so I'm dating myself a little bit. Windows NT could be certified C2, but only if you never connected it to a network. It was the highest level you could get that one. Crazy, huh?
Anything can be secured, but is it usable then is always the question.
And I'm such a literal guy, you know, over the years, you know, you realize that so many people refer to things with different words, you know, and it's frustrating because everybody's speaking these different languages, and that's always been kind of a peeve of mine. And so you take like information security, you know, what is the definition of that? Because then for some reason, somewhere along the line, we decided to call it cyber security. I think it sounds sexier, but it's not the same thing. So we use those interchangeably, but look up the meaning of the word cyber, right? It's of or pertaining to computers. Well, that's different than information security, because information security also has to account for people and the physical controls, right? And we have some sayings that we have used many times. Doesn't really matter. Well, here's one. It's easier to go through your secretary than it is to go through your firewall. Right. Most of the attackers that we face all the time are not nation state. Most of the attackers we face every day are money motivated attackers who want the greatest return on their investment. Well, why would I spend 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 hours trying to bypass some vulnerability on your firewall when I could just pick up a phone?
And
right?
Christoph had that as a cartoon last week. I'm using RSA 4096 encryption. Yeah. Okay, I'll just bash you over the head until you give up your password, or I steal your phone and use facial recognition for it.
Yeah. And then I always had the saying, you know, doesn't matter how secure your firewall is when I can come and steal your server.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
right? So
and
we have to account for those administrative and physical controls, right?
We do. And one of the things I talked about in domain 3 was the striking of the balance that you need to do between ease of use and risk level, or risk mitigated to what level, right? So today I had a call where there was debate as to whether a PIN code should also accompany a door badge. And I said, 2 factors, great. I personally prefer fingerprint as that second factor because it's less friction on the user. And if you do PIN code, you either have to give them one that they got to memorize, type in wrong 3 times and get frustrated, or they're all just going to pick 11111 22222. And you've really mitigated nothing.
Right. Yeah, for sure, man. Well, going back to that language thing. So, you know, we refer to these, what the hell, you were saying something. I forgot. Squirrel.
That happens.
It's
normal. If anybody's got any questions, go ahead and put them in the Slack or the chat.
CE Poly has one saying reviewing crypto methods. Oh, Evan, though, you're our crypto. So what's the difference between symmetric, asymmetric, all that fun stuff? You know, can I share with you my private key? Is that good?
No, don't. Well, yes, it actually is good. Please. I mean, it depends on who I am, I guess. Well, that's, you know, one of the things I think we'll talk about on Monday is identity, right? Identity and authentication. So it depends on who I am. Well, I can say I am whoever I want to say I am, you know, but can I prove it to you? That's the authentication piece. So the basics on encryption, you know, when you talk about symmetric and asymmetric, symmetric key encryption is the same key to encrypt and the same key to decrypt, right? So somehow, if I'm going to communicate with symmetric encryption, which is faster, stronger per bit of key length, right? It's a stronger encryption just because of the way the math works. If I'm going to communicate with Ron here with symmetric encryption, somehow I'm going to need to get him the key, right? So that if I'm encrypting it, you know, and you know, getting literal, taking plain text, turning it into ciphertext, the method to do that is encryption. And you'll have to get literal for the test, right? They will break it down this way. So, you know, you sound remedial, but it's important to get it right. Cryptology is the study. Anytime you hear an ology, that's a study of something. So cryptology is the study of encryption. Encryption, so symmetric encryption, secret one key, encrypts and decrypts. Fast, strong. Your most common, symmetric key encryption algorithm today is the Rindell or however you want to say it. It's because it's not it's not English. So us English folks don't know how to say things from Europe very
Belgium.
well.
They are from Belgium.
Yeah, there you go. But that cipher is, won the contest, essentially, became the advanced encryption standard. So that's the one we use. Asymmetric encryption is a public and private key. They're derived from each other. Typically one of two ways. It's exponents that are used. So you take some number to some other number and make it crazy, crazy big. And you can calculate it one way pretty easily. Calculating it back the other way is really, really difficult. So that's one way to do it. But you have a public key and a private key. The private key is meant to be private. The only thing that can decrypt something with the private key is the public key, and vice versa. So we share the public key with everybody. And allegedly, if I keep the private key secret and safe, I'm the only one who's going to be able to decrypt that message. So when you send me something with my public key, you can be pretty assured that I'm the only one who's going to be able to see that or read that, protecting the confidentiality. Same works the other way. So you can somewhat authenticate me. If I've encrypted something with my private key and you can decrypt it with my public key, then you can, as long as PKI is intact, you can be rest assured that it was me that sent that message. Now we can go a little deeper when we talk about hashing functions and digital signatures and what have you. But those are the basics between symmetric and asymmetric, I think.
Is it okay if I share my screen? I want to show you some tools that I use that I think will help bring this home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Let me find my screen. It's now screen 3. Well, first of all, you should see a SHA-256 SHA secure hashing algorithm, 256 bits long. I will put it.
Now that's how big the hash will be.
Right. So remember, a hash, what it does, it takes a variable length input, creates a set length output that is always unique, that can't be reverse engineered. So I put it in the chat, and you can see this here if I type hello world. And if you look at the bottom, you see the SHA-256 hash of your string changes each time I put in a letter. It creates a unique value. A hash collision would be as if you can have different input that will create the same hash value. SHA-256 has been deemed secure, and that very, very low probability of a hash collision. So you can try this yourself. Type hash hello world. I can put this, well, I'll just do copy to clipboard. You'll get the same. If you notice, this is in hexadecimal, base 16 math. Hashing is what we use with passwords. Passwords are hashed. There's the attack known as pass the hash, where rather than sending passwords over a wire, because you should never store passwords. What you're doing is you're storing the hash and you compare the hash values. Rainbow tables were mentioned last time. Rainbow tables are just gigantic lists of known words, and they don't have to only be English, but they can be sequence of letters, AAAA, ABC 1, 2, 3, etc., with known hash values. Let me see, questions. The question came up about password managers. I don't know about you, Evan, but I like to be agnostic when it comes to which ones I use. I've used many of them. My advice, know how they work. If you are using a password manager, make sure your door to it, your vault, is very well secured, multi-factor authentication. Let me show you something else if you don't mind. And this was just shown in jest by Christoph on Monday, but I really think you should read this to learn AES. It's a stick figure guide to AES. Someone had way too much time on their hands, and I am so thankful, because it's very humorous, but works through how AES came about, how the math is computed. It talks about different types of encryption that can be used, like ROT 13. It's just rotate the alphabet 13 characters. Really easy to figure out.
Frequency analysis.
Yes, exactly. So they had an initial back in the 1970s. IBM came up with DES. We mentioned digital or data encryption standard. It was deemed good for a while, and then
Lucifer.
Yes. And then the call rallied crypto wizards, develop something better. I'll use Frog. No, we'll use Two Fish. Yes, that is actually the name of a well-known symmetric encryption algorithm by who? Bruce Schneier.
Yep. The best book ever written is a red book called Applied Cryptography.
Yep. Bruce's first book. Actually, Bruce was updating. He's written numerous books. You should follow him, watch what he writes. Not you, Evan, but everyone else here.
No, I do too. He's very logical. He's an icon.
He actually was rewriting applied cryptography, saying, if we just encrypt everything, we'll be secure. And then he had an OSM, and he said, wait, what about humans? So anyway, Reindahl.
Hey, and that's the theory, right? You cannot, no matter how hard we try, and we're trying, believe me, look around the industry. No matter how hard you try, you cannot fix people with technology, period. Exactly. So you cannot take people out of the equation. Even if you said, well, we'll do AI, we'll do everything, we'll take people behind the keyboard out of the equation. Somebody still had to write the AI. Somebody still had to code this, and somebody still makes mistakes. And even if you had AI that fixed AI, it was still written by people. And one of the things that Bruce Schneier says all the time, which is just beautiful, and I've never forgotten it, is complexity is the worst enemy of security. So if I had an AI that was trying to fix an AI that was trying to fix an AI, all you're doing is making the problem worse. It's logic. I love logic.
Yes. A lot of that. So Bruce Schneier's blog, he has a blog he puts out. I just showing that on screen, put the link in chat as well.
A little disappointed in his beard.
Yes. And well, even what I've learned, so with Bruce Schneier, he's even vulnerable to eavesdropping. I've tailed him in the past in San Francisco while he's walking around and could have listened in on his conversations. Of course, I've known him for years and he is really cool. So I didn't. I'm just thinking, wow, everybody is vulnerable. Yes. If you read Chris Hadnagy's books, who wrote the books on social engineering, he says, yes, I've been phished. We all have been. Let's see. So my recommendation, look at this. This will explain. This shows how they chose the different algorithms, which one came on top to be the advanced encryption standard. And then I'm going to scroll down quickly because this actually goes through different concepts you need to know about for encryption. Confusion, switching letters, diffusion, switching the order. Secrecy only in the key. And so let's go into the details. Foot shooting prevention agreement. I love geek humor. By the way, Evan, we forgot.
What'd I do?
Happy May 4th.
Oh God, don't, please.
Okay.
You're gonna
leave it there. So you will not, don't roll your own encryption. Be careful of side channel attacks. So if you really want to learn how all of this works, I'm going to go down to the bottom. You can see all of the fun math for math geeks. You read this. Here's the AES crib sheet. Handy for memorizing for CISSP exams. At this point, I think we just lost everybody and they said, I quit. No. You don't need to have all of this memorized and understand how it works. The plus in the circle means XOR. Networking uses XOR. We use this all the time. To understand the concepts, again, look at this to go through it. That'll help make sense. Let me show you also, again, those who are still with us on the YouTube chat. And I know Ryan didn't know about this. I use this all the time to look at website security. And so, Evan, I ran it against FRSecure. It's a public test, so I don't need your permission or anything. And actually, it just shows what you can see otherwise by looking at digital certificates. And congratulations, Evan, you got an A+. It's a little odd.
Less.
Yes, I would have really been surprised. I have run this live, though, against clients, and it comes up like with a B because they don't have stuff fully implemented. Anyway, I recommend run this against your site. If you go just to SSL Labs, test a server, test your browser. How well are you implementing encryption in transit? HTTPS uses TLS. Do not use SSL, even though we'll still use the term SSL. SSL is bad. I'll show you in a minute, those who have not seen it. I use this with auditors.
1.1 and 1.2 are bad. So use 1.3.
Yes. Occasionally, though, you'll have a legacy system where you need to use 1.1 or 1.2. Hopefully, those can be minimized. This brings
and you can code that. You can code those so they will only communicate with legacy systems.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So even then, you don't want to expose that if you can.
True. Yes, you can. And this is where, when you talk about firewalls on Monday, you can set up your access control list.
I like firewalls.
You can segment networks, etc. What this does is it takes a fingerprint. Look, SHA-256, it's used again. So this is the fingerprint for FRSecure.com. What does your certificate? So you are using HTTPS, TLS 1.3. What does that S mean? So let me go to FRSecure. I don't think I already have FRSecure up. Well, let's look at the lock. And this is what everyone who is watching this, pull up a website, HTTPS, look at the lock. You do need to understand this lock for your CISSP exam. It says the connection is secure. Doesn't say the website is secure. What this tells me is that my traffic between my web browser and the FRSecure server is encrypted. So Evan can't be watching what I'm doing in between. It will be all ciphertext for cookies. But let's click on this connection.
Ryan, don't tell him I have the endpoint.
I mean, you know.
Let's look at the certificate is valid, which is a good thing. Shows the certificate issued by Cloudflare.
Ron, one thing I'll add to that I actually ran into today. So the validity period of certificates has changed. Mm-hmm. So you could have a cert that you bought 2 years ago that has an expiration date of next year, and it will now by Google Chrome and other browsers be considered invalid because its validity period is in excess of 13 months. So there are changes coming now. You will not be able to purchase SSL certs for a time period longer than 13 months. And also, and thankfully they're delaying this a little bit, wildcard certs are also going away. So no more wildcard certs in the near future, and effective as of the last Google Chrome update, no cert past 13 months of validity will be accepted as valid.
Fascinating. That is interesting. You see how long the cert is here for FRSecure, good until August 12th. So I'm going to come back on August 13th. And if you have not renewed your cert, I might try to steal it or something. Been known to happen. Wildcard, star. So quick geek humor. What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything?
Encryption.
So from Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Come on, it's May the 4th. We've got to have geek humor. So the answer is 42. Why did Douglas Adams pick 42? What's the ASCII for 42? It's star. I just loved, someone mentioned that to me a few years ago and it just blew my mind. I'm like, oh, then that makes sense. Anything you want. It's a wild card. Anyway, the key, it's using RSA 2048, asymmetric encryption. Is it a weak key? No, good. Who gave FRSecure their key? Who is their certificate authority? CA, testable item. Cloudflare, you can view it. Signature using, so it's combining hashing with AES, but not AES, sorry, RSA. Let's see. What's a curl? Certificate revocation list, OSCP, is also used to validate certificates. You can actually look at the certificate revocation list. So the idea, and why Ryan said earlier, you should not have certificates that last forever, is that you should be rotating them in case they get corrupted. Someone is able to determine your digital signature. See, it ties to DNS. So if we go back up to the top, shows the IPv4 address associated with FRSecure, which you can, if you try trace routing or pinging FRSecure, that's what you come back with. Let's see. Again, so many fun things in this. DNS, you can read about how it's associated with DNS, subject, the issuer, others. And then if you scroll all the way down, it actually shows the different protocols. Of course, no to everything but TLS 1.3, 1.2, cipher suites, potentially using some weak handshakes that are allowed. And then down at the bottom, these protocol details, it's actually testing against known attacks. And it's not like a penetration test. This is just seeing potential vulnerabilities. If you're not familiar with some of these, it's just extra homework. Basically, are you running SSL 3.0 or just basic TLS, then vulnerable to Poodle or Golden Doodle? That's the SSL Labs website. For me, it really brings a lot of what has been talked about with networking, with encryption home. And it's all things you can find by just going into the digital certificate. Let's see, any questions in chat? So yes, this is live demos. Other tools, knowing how to do a who is lookup. I will use there's many tools, domain tools, G Suite. You can even just ping. This shows who provided the DNS name, etc. The who is, the lookup for FRSecure. Who do they go through? GoDaddy. So if you remember the hacking life cycle, first step, reconnaissance. This is part of recon. And I only go after, and granted, Evan didn't give me permission to do this, but this is all publicly available information anyway. Nothing up my sleeves, nothing hidden. So just showing you these are different tools I recommend you use as you are studying through the book, going through test questions. What ISC² is trying to do with their exam is trying to make it real life like this. Not just trying to make it an exam question, have you memorized definitions, but can you use it in real life? And that's why I think these demos are important to actually show how this works, how you can trace a route which shows networking in action, and particularly as Evan talks more about networking next week.
Well, and I would add to this as well, Ron, one of the techniques that, the pen tester or a cyber criminal would use is leveraging poorly configured whois records. So a lot of times people don't secure the record. And so you'll also see home addresses and telephone numbers and names, and even in some cases, business information that allows you to craft social engineering attacks, spoofing of DNS record renewals, all kinds of interesting things. So I don't know how much the book goes into taking that operational security into consideration, but absolutely, if you're going to set up a DNS record, be very careful to configure it in its most secure. Whois will know who you are, but it doesn't have to make that information publicly available. But by default, it is all publicly available.
Great points. Yes. So look through, if you own a website, look through it. Other things, we'll talk about email on Monday, but use DMARC, DMARC. We'll save that for another day. You can do DNS lookups. I just like all these tools. I'm waiting for my Nmap to, let's see. Oh, there we go. So someone said they want to see Nmap. Oops, this is one thing I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can do this. File. I need to, give me 1 minute. Let me get something to zip. So we were talking about AES. So if I needed to send you a secure file, but I want to encrypt it and use point-to-point encryption. Oh, 1 second, pulling it up. I can use a tool called 7-zip to zip it. And I'm trying to see if I can get into it, how to do it. Nope, that won't work. Anyway, give me 1 moment. Someone else was asking about Nmap. So nmap.org, you can use to scan your own home network. I do recommend you try using it. When I teach this university classes, students run it at home and they watch all of their neighbors who use their Wi-Fi. I'm running it on a particular segment of my network, and you can now see, can you tell what game system I use and what game you can guess what game I just got. I still haven't had time to play it. What types of cameras I have. So who needs Shodan? Shodan, by the way, shodan.io you can use for scanning as well. So I don't know, Ryan or Evan, have you ever used, how often do you use Nmap to look at your home network?
At least a couple times a month.
There you go.
We actually, I'll put the link in the chat. We actually did a podcast on how to use Nmap and what to do with that.
There you go.
Yeah, I actually script it, and that's how I catch my daughter plugging things into the network. So it's my own little network. Not really a network access control because I'm not prohibiting the connection, but as soon as it does connect, I find out soon. Yeah, you'd be interested. So the average American, people in the US, the average American, as of I think last year, had 12 devices connected to their home network.
12, huh?
Yeah, and the rule is you can't possibly protect the things you don't know you have. So if you don't know the things that are on your home network, because you are the CEO of your home, right? Nobody's responsible for the safety of your family more than you are. So knowing what's on your network, knowing what's coming and going is actually really important. And you learn a lot while you do it.
Sorry, I was trying to pull up something else and it's just not working. Anyway, whenever you try to do live demos, things will never work right. So this is Nmap. It pulls together IPv4. You can see MAC address is what layer? Those on YouTube. Oh, you spoiled it forever.
Your IP address layer 3. It's logical. 32 bits.
Yep. So can you spoof this? Oh yeah.
Yes. Art poisoning attack.
So
do it.
You see, someone asked the ports. Do you need to know ports for the exam? Maybe. Yes. I would know well-known ones.
Yeah.
For example, these are well-known, associated, for those in chat, what operating system do you think this is? Mm-hmm. So I would know 443, 80, some other well-known ports.
25, 21, 23, 22, those would all be.
I do want to show one other quick thing, if you will allow me, if I can get back on it. Again, trying to do
AJP 13, that's an interesting service. I don't know what that is. Port 8009. That's what we call an ephemeral port.
Yes. Yes, ephemeral, meaning, so ports go one way, by the way. So going out and in. A tool I recommend y'all have, not y'all, Evan and Ryan, who are on with me, but anyone else who's still watching the video or live in chat. Let me pull it up here, the website, and then I will And unfortunately, so I went to update it right before we started this. And of course, I'm having problems with my update, but it's called Wireshark. If you're getting confused about that OSI 7-layer model and you're a very visual person, because Evan you asked earlier, how did we memorize it? I just kind of memorized it by using tools like Wireshark. You can go and they have tremendous documentation and tutorials on it. I'm actually running it inside a virtual machine I had to do earlier because I couldn't get it on my desktop to work. Go figure. You can actually see inside network packets at each of the layers. And this isn't really quite complete. I only ran it for a few seconds, but before we asked, TCP. TCP is connection-based versus UDP, which is used for streaming. So this shows you.
Did we talk about ACK and ACK and ACK back?
A little bit. You can go into it more.
Well, that'll probably be on the test. The 3-way handshake for TCP, connection-oriented, UDP being connection-less. And the 3-way handshake is an acknowledgement packet first, and then you get a SYN ACK back, an acknowledgement and a synchronization request, which in there will be, and if you look through a packet, look through any one of these packets with a SYN reply back for a SYN ACK, you'll see in there things like windowing. Windowing is the amount of data that the computer, it's synchronization stuff. Like, what are we going to agree upon in this connection? And a window is how much data I'm expecting before I'm going to expect another acknowledgement. MTUs, all those things will be negotiated in that SYN ACK back. And then the last, what finishes the handshake is the final acknowledgement. So it's called an ACK, a SYN ACK, and an ACK back. That's the 3-way handshake for TCP.
Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any examples in the sample that I ran. That's always the fun part, trying to do.
But all those things demos. You see there, like that PSH, that's a push packet. That's just a flag that's set in that TCP header. That this is a, it's supposed to get precedent in this, as another computer's analyzing it. That's just a flag. When you set all the flags in a packet, that's called the Christmas tree attack. And that used to be one that we would do often because it would crash systems. It doesn't work anymore, but it was fun.
So to bring this back home running, well, ZenMap is the GUI interface to Nmap. You actually see the command here. You can actually use the Nmap flags, as Evan pointed out, and create a Christmas tree attack. You can modify this as you would like. Of course, you can run Nmap from a command prompt. Works really well with Linux, running different types of scans. But yes, you can use this to see how firewalls respond. Does the firewall drop the packet, or does it say, yeah, it's not there, which is actually kind of saying, yeah, it is there. I'm simplifying tremendously. If you study any of the hacking, penetration testing certifications, you will need to know all of this technical detail, all of the Nmap flags. To me, this brings it all home. T, how fast do you run it? Do you run low and slow? What do you scan? So this is the IP address range. I'm only doing 1 through 50. I can specify ports that I want to look at. All Nmap is doing is like walking around a neighborhood to say, who's that? Yeah, what doors and windows are open in a particular house. A few other things here with Wireshark. Oh, and Jason, you put in chat, you have a buddy who can read Wireshark, like reading anything. Yeah. Wireshark is not a security tool. It's a networking tool. Can you use it for security? Yes, with most tools. But if you remember this OSI layer, this shows you, we see frame is layer 1. Ethernet, you see MAC addresses. Layer 2, we're using IPv4. You can see the source address, just like on a letter, source address, destination address. The port that is being used, or ports going from my computer here to the other computer. You see it all has sequences. I don't have any UDP in here, but you'd be able to see UDP. And I don't have HTTP, but if I did, you could then use this to see, is there encryption in transit? So if you're auditing and you need to prove in an audit that there's no clear text, it's all ciphertext, you can use Wireshark as part of an audit. I'm just reading chat. Right here. Go over here. Reading Jason comments. Better for a firewall to drop or ignore a packet. What do you think, Evan?
Better for a firewall to drop or ignore packet. Probably ignore. Because ignore would imply that there's a log. I don't know if the drop would log, but I like the logs. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it probably won't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as nearly, when I run firewalls, I'm not nearly as concerned about ingress traffic as I am about egress traffic. Most organizations getting past firewalls, getting into organizations is really pretty trivial. It's what is communicating outbound that I'm really more concerned about. A lot of times you'll identify command and control traffic. You'll see data exfiltration. Most people don't think about that. So, and attackers know that. Attackers know that you're probably pretty solid on the ingress, assuming you have any change control around your firewall. That's if I have one firewall tip, it'd be starting to butt down your egress traffic going out.
Yes, that was a problem with initial Windows firewalls, wasn't it? It was just firewalling ingress. They didn't even think about egress at the time. And now you can do both. Let's see, I'm stopping my share. I do have a question for you that was once asked of Rick Howard when he was CISO of Palo Alto Networks. And I'm curious to see if your answer will be the same. So IPv6 has been around for 20 years. Why don't we, and it has IPsec built in, why don't we solely use IP version 6? Why do we still use IP version 4?
Money.
What was that?
Money.
Money. Why money?
It's expensive. You have to change a lot of things. You have to train up a lot of new people. You have to rewrite a lot of new applications. It's a lot of work. So money drives it. It's the same with like what we went through with the payment card. Security. For the longest time, Europe was way ahead of us because they had chip and pin. We were just straight magnetic stripe forever. It wasn't until after the Target breach happened in 2013 that really woke people up because money was associated with it. And so that's the big reason why.
Yeah, legacy was Rick Howard's response because we still have stuff that may be attaching that can't handle. I also think that it's because network admins have a harder time reading hexadecimal quickly than reading IPv4 dotted decimal.
I think there is a bit of convenience fact. I mean, it's definitely more the legacy money aspect, but there is a convenience piece. I mean, it's hard enough to read IPs out over the phone in IPv4. When you get into 6, it's like colon, and is that a 0 or hold on, right?
Yeah, but I think just like you remember the first time you learned TCP/IP, and maybe you learned subnetting and supernetting, and so you had to break things down into binary. The first couple of times it was really intimidating, but then it just after a while it becomes natural. And I think IP version 6 will do the same because they do such a good job with condensing the 128 bits. And so I don't think it'd be that hard to read if you were just used to it. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. I mean, at a certain point,
but everything that drives everything is money, right? If there was a return on investment to go to IP version 6, we'd be doing it. You'd be forced to learn it.
Let me reshare my screen. One more thing to quickly share. I was trying to bring up earlier in good conversation because it is very applicable how we work with networks. Let me go back to Zoom. I wanted to show you 7-zip.
You're still using 7-zip, man? Show me 8-zip.
No, we're going to jump right to 10-zip. Like 10-zip. This was the joke. Yeah. Where is IP version 5? Oh, it was only used on Win 9. So.
Right. I want to see NG AI blockchain zip.
So I still,
But,
yeah, 7-zip, oldie but a goodie. I used to zip. You can zip things within Windows as well, but if things still work, but what I use this for is to be able to show symmetric encryption. I've actually, so I had this challenge a few years ago. Let me ask my security gurus in the room here. I was working with an attorney and he's like, yeah, can you email me your tax return? And I'm like, no, do you have a secure way I can get it to you? And you're like, what? He's like, well, yeah, I need to see it quick. Can't you just email it to me? So I actually used 7-zip, showed him how to use it. He tried to charge me for teaching him how to secure my information.
sure,
That
this
was
wasn't a
funny.
lawyer. Sounds like a lawyer.
I also had, I don't think it was the same lawyer, but I had another lawyer. Yeah, I think it was. So I looked him up on Google, did a quick Google search of him, found where he went to college. And he then said I was violating his privacy. I'm like,
It's
yeah.
funny. My wife had a friend, I think it's had, I don't think they're friends anymore, but who was a lawyer, and they live in a small town, and they both went to the coffee shop at the same time. So they're both standing in line and they're just having a chit chat, right? Nothing about law things. And later on that month, we got a bill. And obviously it was a mistake, and that's not the reason why they're not friends anymore either. But, because lawyers have to account for like every minute of their day often, and had put in there, had a discussion with, my wife. And so it ended up being a bill. Isn't that weird?
That is. So Ryan just put in our private chat here that 7-zip, I guess, has a 0-day associated with it. But well,
What
I'm
doesn't?
careful.
No. Let's do, but I did that not to knock it. I love 7-zip. I've used it for years. It's just to highlight that even security professionals that do this every single day, there is a little bit of keep up. There's no way that I can know, Evan, Ron, anyone can know all the things that happened today. I mean, just in the last 24 hours, there have been several very significant attacks that have been conducted that aren't hitting the main media. There is a new TLS storm that has hit certain vendors. So part of the job is that continuous learning, and you guys are living that. Tonight we're trying to reinforce some of these concepts and solidify the learning. You're never going to be done, but a good habit is pick and choose how much you're going to do in any given day. You can't know it all. There's no way to know it all. Right. So myself, about once a week, I go take a quick peek. What came out this week that I don't know about that I might want to be concerned about. But if I try to do it every single day, I'll do nothing but patch software that I need to actually use to do the things I need to do.
Well, and you hit a key point, man. Nobody will ever know everything about this industry. But one thing that you can know just about everything about is the basics, the fundamentals, the foundation of information security. Mm-hmm. And some people will try to, sexify it, meaning, let's make it zero trust. Well, there's nothing in zero trust that's new, right? The word is, and the way they built it out, they just made it more complicated. So now, we make it harder. But at the end of the day, it's least privilege. At the end of the day, it's default deny, right? Those are things that we've been preaching, we've been knowing forever. And so I think for longevity purposes in this industry, you can always stand on the foundation. You can always stand on the basics, and you can always help somebody there, right? Because even amongst us, right? Well, we do this all the time, and you'll hear about something and it'd be like, oh, geez, I've never heard about that. And I don't have to feel bad that I never heard about that. I can't hear about everything. But one of the things that happens in this industry, sadly, is there's a lot of ego sometimes, and you got to be aware of that somebody will make you feel maybe less significant or less important because you don't know about the new latest and greatest whatever. Screw it. Water off the back. You know what I mean? You gotta let that stuff go.
A lot of what ISC squared is looking for in taking exams like this is how well do you translate? How well do you correlate? There was a question last session, do they ask questions across domains? Yes, all the time. Because if you look at the SSL labs, it's not just in the networking, it's not just in encryption, it's all of it. Our lives intersect, string theory. Just to finish this thought real quick, I happen to use this, but you can encrypt AES 256, and that's the limit in terms of the strength of the key. For those who are still with us, what's the thing with keys? Longer is better. Size does matter. But yeah, if I need to,
the same is true for your password, by the way. Long is strong. That's the number one thing.
Yep. So I'll use password as my password for this.
No, you did not.
I did. What did I just encrypt? Just the slides from last year.
I don't know.
So
it comes back I'm gonna sell those on eBay. I'm gonna be rich.
Right. Well, they're already published Creative Commons anyway. So my point there. So I have to admit something to you, Ryan and Evan, that'll probably get me kicked out really quick. I use password as my password sometimes.
Me too. Depends on what it is.
Exactly. That always freaks some people. What?
What's the risk I'm mitigating? That's what I'm interested in, right? What's the impact if it goes wrong? And if it's a test system that's going to exist for 33 seconds, it doesn't really matter.
Did I tell you guys
manage somebody else's? Hold on one second. Let me tie this off. If I'm going to manage somebody else's stuff, or it's things that are very important to me, then it matters a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Did I tell you last week I decided to change all my passwords. Every once in a while, I just get a wild hair, and I'm like, all right, I'm changing all my passwords. It's good practice, and I should practice what I preach. I only have 208 passwords left to go. But I didn't realize that I had some passwords that were 6-7 years old that I hadn't changed. Now, they were for accounts that I don't really care about either. But still, I mean, there are things called impersonation as well, where you could get into an account that maybe I don't care about from a confidentiality standpoint, but use that account then to pivot and, hit somebody else with it. So
I'll be coming back talking about identity and access management teaser for next Wednesday. Oh, by the way, I was thinking about talking more about it, but I don't want to get too far ahead. So come back in a week for those who are still with us, and we'll go into how to manage identity and authentication, authorization, auditing, that IAAA stuff. So anything else for tonight? We've been going for about an hour or so. If others have questions, looking at the chat, it didn't look like. Thoughts on NIST guidelines about passwords and removing expiration. So NIST 5 years ago got rid of password rules. NIST 800-63B, if you want the exact reference, and it is really scary how I know that. They no longer state that a password needs to be a set length. They actually have 3 levels associated with it: type 1, type 2, type 3. For data you don't really care about, you can use password as a password, single factor. Type 2, normal, what we'll use multi-factor. Type 3, if you have very confidential data like cardholder data in a cardholder environment, you may want to use more than 2 or 3 factors, particularly for administrator accounts. And that's how NIST now describes it. So to answer that question, I will still work and audit, assess organizations, and I ask them, well, how do you know you're setting passwords to be 8 characters? What is that based on? Oh, it's based on NIST. I'm like, NIST hasn't had that. NIST said you no longer have to change passwords every 90 days. So a password, going back to encryption, is like a key. What you saw with 7-zip. You rotate the keys in case the key gets compromised. You rotate your password in case your account gets compromised. It limits the time of exposure, is all it does. So that's why we should change passwords, Evan said, just even on a wild hair on occasion, because if I know one of Evan's passwords, as soon as he changes it, I'll have to figure it out again. Let's see. What else about NIST? Appreciate the demos. You're welcome, everybody. This is fun.
Well,
passphrases, yes.
When you talk about passwords, man, it all comes down to risk management. Right? These things that we're talking about is risk management. If the likelihood of something bad happening, the impact if it did. So if the likelihood of something, like I used the word password, the likelihood of you cracking that is very high. The impact to me is nil because it's publicly available information. The risk is essentially nil. So I don't care about that. Right. But then you take the likelihood, let's say I use password for my bank. Right. The likelihood then is still high. The impact is also high. So now the risk is high, probably intolerable for me. So I'll mitigate that risk. And all this comes down to risk management. And you talk about, NIST standards, and those are good for guidance. But what I would never do in my own security program is reference, well, I'm doing what NIST said, because it doesn't matter what NIST says. What's the risk? Are you managing risk well? Because NIST is guidance. It's not, do it what it says. So, don't fall for that.
Well, gentlemen, I have to step away and manage a risk of not being at my dinner table with my spouse here in a second.
What are you having for dinner? What are you having for dinner?
I don't know, because I've been in here with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and mitigate that risk by showing up late, but still there.
What if I stop by?
That's different. I'll be done eating by then and the risk will have passed.
For your food.
It's temporal. Come by. We have lots of food. We'll make you something when you get here.
I love you.
I love you too. And we love Ron. You guys are awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for being together here tonight. And everybody tune in on Monday. Here's some awesome stuff from Ev, and tune in again on Wednesday for Ron. And then I'll figure out what the deck is I need to start working on now.
Right. All right.
Ciao, everyone.